She dances to the music of the dead. Barefoot and silent, she twirls with arms outstretched, head thrown back, eyes half-lidded. The grotesquerie of the music bothers her not at all. Her wide, staring amber eyes are fever-bright and mad, but I do not mind. We are all mad in this place, in the Leichenhaus of Munich, where the dead come to occupy the marble biers until, days or weeks after they arrive, what remains of them is taken away and buried. And in the meantime, the dead make music. Upon arrival, every finger and toe of each corpse is tied by the finest thread to the organ. 10 fingers and 10 toes per body, with hundreds of bodies lying in state in multiple spacious rooms, the threads becoming a monstrous tangle dreamed up by no living spider, a web of death that should be as inanimate as the travertine of the putrescence-stained floors. But the dead are not still. Guts bloat, muscles twitch, tendons contract. Helmet jokes that the dead fart better than he does after a plate of beans. All night, every night, the dead occupants of these vast rooms shudder and groan and writhe, tugging on their silken strands, sending vibrations through the labyrinthine web to the organ. And it plays. Its blaring rumbles through the very bones of the living, robbing one of voice and will. For who could stay sane in the presence of such demented music? And into this house of insanity she comes to dance. I call her Lily, and she is fairer by far than the wilting lilies brought here in a useless attempt to cover the stench. Her blonde hair shines like a golden waterfall in the warm candlelight. Her white skin is flawless unless one looks closely enough to spy the green and purple of bruises. The dead sport their bruises too, but Lily's are not from decay. Sometimes I see the marks of fingers on her skin, dark against her alabaster paleness. I wonder if it is a father or husband who wounds her thus, but she is mute, and there is no way to ask her. The first time I see her is on a warm spring night. I am startled by the sound of footfalls, momentarily frozen in terror, wondering if the dead have indeed risen from their stone couches. Trembling, I look into the smallest room, the one at the very back of the building, where the most putrid inmates lie in state. That room holds one small door that is never locked. Who would dream of coming through it, into the most noisome room on the premises, the one where we do not even bother with our feeble attempts to control the rankness with flowers? I stare into the room, staying as far as possible from the biers. One learns early here that the odor of the fluids that leak from corpses stays on clothes and skin far longer than the stain. Nor do I want to touch the draped lace, stiff from days, even weeks, of bearing the weight of that foul odor, and the slippery effluvia that soaks in and drains down to the floor. She stands in the center of an aisle, head cocked, eyes closed. Her lace nightgown is indecently sheer, and I would avert my gaze. But in that moment, one of our charges jerks a limb, and the organ sounds a grotesque trill no living composer could have scripted. She opens her eyes, sees me, and smiles widely. Her mouth moves, but no sound escapes her. And as the dead play, she dances, heedless of the foul black puddles tinged with green, the flies buzzing around her feet, the maggots in the far corners crunching on unseemly things best left alone. In that moment, she snares my mind and heart. Her beauty enthralls me. My spirit soars and entwines itself around this angelic vision. My own soul is lost to me, and I do not care. She departs while the stars still shine overhead, creeping out the unlocked door and disappearing into the pre-dawn dimness. My soul grieves to see her go, but how could she stay? The day shift would send her to an asylum or a hospital. Better that she go before the end of the night. I think, surely, that she will never come again. One cannot have two miracles in a lifetime, especially not in this place. But I am wrong. It is only 3 nights before I see Lily again. As before, I watch her dance, glad of something to fill my mind besides the endless rounds, the odors, and, of course, the incessant drone of the music. Her gracefulness entrances me. Her innocent gaze sears my soul like a brand. It is weeks before I realize I love her. 6 months later, and she is still coming, perhaps once a week, sometimes twice. I am in agony the nights she is not here, and ecstasy when she is. This night she does not stay long, which breaks my heart. I am worried. Her bright eyes are the same, but her color is high, her skin waxy. Her hair is greasy and unkempt, her cheekbones more angled than ever in the flickering light, and her pale feet are clumsy. Black blotches on her skin peek out between the thin traceries of lace, larger than finger marks and irregular in shape. Her bones show through her flesh as they never have before. My soul is troubled to the point where I speak to her, which I have never yet done. "Lily, come back soon," I say as she heads back towards the door. The ladies' door, I call it now. She startles a moment, perhaps alarmed to hear my voice for the first time. Then she smiles, sadly, before ducking outside into the dark. That smile wraps my heart in its lovely embrace, and I am comforted for now. In the distance, thunder rumbles. The sky has thundered for days, but so far no rain has come to break the ferociously dry weather. The grass outside is sere, the trees half dead, the air choked with the dust of 100,000 carriages, churned up by the hooves of the animals who draw the cabs, and those who were driven into the city destined for the slaughterhouse. Autumn should have brought some relief, but this year there is none. The morning shift man is Carl. I despise him secretly, because he thinks anyone on the night shift worthy of mockery. Stinky Hans, he calls me, though that is not my name. Besides, he stinks as well by the time his shift is ended. But he thinks, because he has the day shift, he is better than me. He thinks he is still sane. How little he knows. But today I want to hear the news, so when his gray, bowed figure enters the building, I smile and wave as if I am happy to see him. "Guten Morgen, Karl," I say brightly. "What news of the city this fine day?" "Fine day," he snaps. His teeth are stained from tobacco, and his beard is ragged. His flesh hangs on his bones, in a bizarre antipode of the bloated flesh on the skeletal frames of our inmates. "Not a drop of rain in 2 months. And now the plague has come back. From Serendip, or so they say." I have no idea where Serendip might be, or even if it's a real place. "But Carl," I say as my heart jumps in shock from the news, remembering the marks on my lovely dancer, my Lily. "The plague? That is terrible news. We have hardly any empty biers as it is. Where shall we put them all when they come here, the plague victims?" "It will cut into business," he says, and I realize that what they say about Carl is true. He is one of those who charges the living a fee to walk through the rooms of the wretched dead. The superintendent, they say, knows but doesn't care. It's difficult to hire people to work in the Leichenhaus. If those who work here find ways to supplement their income, or even amuse themselves in other, less wholesome ways, who will confront them? So Carl has a way to put more money in his pocket, but not if the plague is truly here. Who would come to see the plague dead? The perverse desire of some of the citizens of the city to stare at their fellow citizens as they rot among the flowers will not be stronger than the fear of sickness. They come not to risk contagion, but to see those whose deaths can be held at arm's length. Oh yes, then they come and drop a coin in Carl's pocket, and point and stare, and feel smug in their beating hearts and their healthy lungs working like bellows. "See, here is the old tante of my neighbor. Why, she looks like she is only sleeping. And there is the brother of my cousin's husband. Ah, how handsome he used to be." They are careful never to mention the discolorations, the awkward postures, the slack skin and shriveled fingertips. Those tales they carry to the bartenders at the local taverns. "Why, Gerard, I saw a little girl, no more than 2, with braids just as golden as you please, but her lips were drawn into a sneer that was most disturbing to see, her eyes half-lidded and dried like currants from Helga's stall in the market. No little girl was ever meant to look like that. Ah, God." Carl rubs a gnarled hand through his beard. "But maybe we will finally have someone saved from this dreadful place at last. Everyone will be in such a rush to get the plague victims here that some will surely come who are not already dead, and then some newspapermen will pay us for our story, eh? We might come out ahead after all." Now that strikes me as a real possibility. The Walking Dead, not the newspapermen. A plague might turn everything upside down, and the concerts of the dead will include notes sounded by the living, awakening from a plague-induced lethargy. For that is why the dead are never left alone, why at least one living soul must be on shift at all times. What if one of our charges should not be truly dead, and awaken here in this gruesome place, with its odors and puddles of bloated humpbacked flies? Who can stomach the thought of a pitiful maiden screaming in terror when she wakes on a bier, fingers and toes encased in string, shrieking for help that does not come? Or the fine gentleman whose eyelids flutter open, only to find himself covered in drooping flowers and rancid lace? Or the matron who remembers the kiss death placed upon her lips, and now wonders why he did not take her to be with her husband and her children, long dead and molded in their graves? Waking insane to an insane place, they would cry, "But were we not good enough for him? Could he not take us? The loneliness, the loneliness! The burden of living, we had forgotten it. Why does he make us awake to it once again?" "Perhaps it will rain, and the plague will not be so bad," I say. Carl shakes his head. "This city is sick. Everywhere there is death and drought. It is time for a rebirth. A phoenix." I cannot recall hearing that word before. "A what?" "A being of fire," says Carl. "To burn away the old and usher in the new. The drought and the plague are God's punishment for our sins. A phoenix will wipe away our stains and bring us redemption." "Oh," I say after a moment, because what else can one say to that? For now, well, I am off. Carl only shrugs, brows furrowed. I assume he is still thinking of the income he stands to lose, and that makes me wonder how much he charges. No one comes to the Leichenhaus at night, except Lily, and she is hardly a paying customer, so I do not know the going price for a chance to peer at the dead. By evening, when I return, Carl is gone and Helmut is on duty. Helmut is young, with sky-blue eyes that would enchant any young woman, but he also has a withered leg that keeps him out of both the army and his father's fields. Helmut left the farm this summer and came to the city looking for his fortune, but found only the Leichenhaus. He used to speak and behave normally, but after 2 months here, he speaks seldom and laughs often, like the asylum inmates we hear tales of. We are all mad in this place, but Helmut especially. Carl has found Helmut cutting himself with knives, and sometimes he grazes on the flowers even though that makes him sick. There is no doubt that Helmut will be on a slab himself shortly, maybe even by year's end, and then he will laugh no more, but he will have his strings and his organ music, and be as piteous as the rest. "Guten Abend," I say. "How was your shift?" Helmut ducks his head and chuckles. He gestures toward the first room of the Leichenhaus, the one with the most beers and the soaring arched ceiling. I glance in and see every slab occupied, fresh flowers piled in between them and in every corner. Helmut might be insane, but he does a good job with the flowers. The strings, well, sometimes he forgets all about that. I see many bodies that have yet to be connected to the organ. "Sick! All dead," says Helmut, and he laughs in his unnerving way. He scampers out the door before I can reply, and I am alone here for the night. I check the written log, and see we have had 4 bodies removed, but 18 new ones brought in. 5 to 10 is more usual. 18 is high, but not so high we cannot handle the volume. I get the string and go out among the fields of corpses to tie them up properly and prepare them for making music of their own. The air is heavy, heavier than normal, and it is humid. Maybe it will rain at long last, and both the drought and the plague will be nothing but a memory. It is a feeble wish, though, for my heart is too heavy from the unrelenting heat and the lunatic nature of this place. My memories of Lily are all I have to comfort me while I take the fine thread and fasten it around every cold finger and toe, and make sure with a delicate pluck that a note will sound the moment there is any movement at all. It is dawn before I am finished, and I am both famished from missing my midnight meal and disappointed that I do not see Lily again. Perhaps she will come tonight, though I have little hope. Storm clouds whip across the sky, and thunder rumbles through the city streets, ever louder and more insistent. Surely anyone who cares about Lily will see she does not leave the house in a downpour. If she were mine, I would keep her safe, keep her dry, make sure she lacked for nothing, that there would be no reason for her to seek escape, especially to a place as horrible as this. How she could come here, and dance, and smile, and behave as though the beauty of the flowers could ever dissipate the loathsome spectacle of this legion of the dead under their stained shrouds, bound together by strand upon strand of twine. How could this be better than wherever she spends her days? Carl is just as dour as usual, and does not even bother to say anything snide to me as I leave. He is in an even fouler mood when I return from my shift, since Helmut did not appear to relieve him when he should. That is unusual. Helmut may be insane, but he is punctual. 14 out, but 23 brought in today," says Carl, with an angry shake of his head. 23. With Dieter quitting mid-shift and helmet missing. 23. He clutches one arthritic hand with the other, his knuckles knotted with pain. I wonder how many of the 23 he has managed to attach to the organ, and how many I have left to do. A blinding flash of lightning strokes through the room, followed immediately by a huge bang directly overhead. The storm is upon us, though so far the sky has continued to withhold the promised rain. 2 years here, Carl says as the walls shake from the aftermath of the thunder. 2 years! And what have I to show for it but stained clothing and a roach-infested room? And now plague? It is not to be borne, Hans. I do not say that I have been here 5 years. The old superintendent came once, about a year ago, and, in between coughing spells, praised me for my loyalty. And you've never missed a day, Joseph. You were a fine worker, one of the best, and so eager to work the night shift. The other part, the part that stayed trapped behind his yellow teeth and parched lips, he'd left unstated. And you can still pass for sane. For how could anyone work here and stay sane? It is not possible. He knew it, and I knew it. I saw it in the beads of sweat on his upper lip, in the trembling of his hands as they grasped a handkerchief and thrust it before his nose, in the pale sheen of his skin. A faint blush in his cheeks and the clearness of his eyes were proof enough that he still lived, though with that cough he would not be long for this world, I knew. Within 3 months he came here to lie on his own stone couch, fingers and toes bound to the web by string, and played the organ as well as any of them. The new superintendent I have never seen. You should go, I say to Carl, before you get caught in the storm. He flicks his dark, bloodshot gaze at me briefly then. What does it matter? He says. This city is cursed. He shuffles out the door and leaves me to my shift. Carl has surprised me, and has actually finished 15 of the new arrivals. One of them is a small boy, dark hair slicked down, and fancy suit tidy and clean. It will not be clean long. I can easily imagine his mother fastening every button, making sure to eliminate every wrinkle, arranging every hair in place, before she saw him off to his new home. I hope she does not come here to visit her son. He will not look so well within a few days, and by next week he will be bloated and purple, or worse, and the suit will be soggy and stained black and brown. The mothers I have seen walking out of here at the end of the day shift are always shaking and haunted. At first I pitied them, but now I pass them by without feeling anything for them at all. I can have no pity for those who could stay home, but instead would torture themselves unnecessarily with the sights and odors of their dead. They see what they can never unsee, and weep, and I no longer have even a kind smile to give them. We are all mad in this place, especially those who harbor hope that their loved one might not truly be gone, that their farewells were premature and the beloved wife or son will one day be warm and rosy again and held in a fond embrace. Welcomed back home to repair the breach in the family and make everything the way it should be once more. That is true insanity. The dead are dead and do not return from the dread land where they now dwell. Next to the boy is a woman whom he resembles strongly. She, too, is neat, wearing her best, hair perfect. I read the tags at the foot of the biers. Friedrich Bernhardt, says the one on the boy. Ilse Bernhardt, says hers. A sick feeling overtakes me as I realize my pleasant fantasy about a mother caring for her child was futile. She was bound for this place as well. Together, mother and child stare sightlessly at the soot-covered ceiling, where hosts of painted angels used to dance in heavenly bliss. But a century of candle smoke has darkened them until no trace of color remains, as if even heaven has drawn a cloak over itself, unwilling to look at the rotting inmates below. As if they know that Friedrich and his mother are only the beginning, and that soon legions of the dead will be brought within our walls, to lie under stiff lace, and leak onto the floor, and gaze at ceilings that should depict wondrous scenes both glorious and uplifting, but instead show nothing but darkness. I wonder if we have enough twine for them all. I am only on my second corpse, a young man whose broad nose, square face, and calloused hands bespeak someone who worked in a factory, when I hear the lady's door open. My heart skips a beat. Lily! I will see her dance tonight. I cannot bear to wait a moment. I drop my ball of string and rush past the other newcomers to head toward the back room, my heart light, my feet swift. In the heavy air, the fetid odor coming from the room is thicker than ever. Even I am choked by the taste of it. But what do I care, when Lily is here to dance for me? Lily is indeed there, in front of the open door, with soot-stained feet. She must have walked through the refuse dump where we burn the mops, lace, and curtains after they become too soiled to be laundered. Even the smoke coming from the rubbish fires is foul and makes the neighbors complain. Something is wrong. Lily is not dancing. In fact, she leans on a bier whose occupant is leaking dark red fluid onto her lace nightgown. Lily's face is white, even in the gentle yellow of the candlelight. Flash! Bang! My eyes are seared by the lightning strike, and I reel backward. The smell of the blasted atmosphere penetrates even this room. And now comes the rain. On the roof it sounds as though all the waters of heaven are pouring down at once. Not even the deluge that caused Noah's flood could have been so violent. Spots dance before my eyes for long seconds. By the time I can see again, Lily has disappeared. I go to the lady's door, but I swiftly realize that if she has gone outside, I will not see her in this thick curtain of water. I head back to the main room, only to hear, in the midst of the rain and the music and the thunder, something I have never heard before. Someone is pounding on the great bronze doors at the far end of the hall. Boom, boom, boom. For a moment, I am too stunned to move, but then my feet carry me forward, and I hear a male voice shouting, "Let me in! I know she is here! Magda, do you hear me?" Magda? That is the name of my Lily? It is too heavy a name, not light and golden like she is. It does not have the grace of her form, the sweetness of her smile. She is my Lily, my secret, my treasure, my only love. Boom, boom, boom. I go to the door, but I do not unbar it. Let this man pound on it with all his might. He does not belong here, with the corpses and their string, and the demented music composed by the dead. He does not deserve to see Lily dance among the flowers. I turn around, and there she is, sheer terror on her face, her arms wrapped around her. She shakes her head back and forth, slowly, as the booming on the door continues. "You want him to stay outside?" I ask. Relief floods her face, and she nods. But that movement unbalances her, and she stumbles into me. I catch her, surprised at the intense fever heat coming off her skin. The ember of her life is burning far too brightly inside her, guttering, dying. With a surge of despair, I realize the plague will take her, just as surely as it took young Friedrich and his mother. I grasp her to me, tightly. A reflex, a desire to hold her close to me, just once. She freezes, then pulls away. I let her go, and she lurches to a beer, shaking her head. I remember the bruises I have seen on her. This man who is pounding on the door, is he the one that grabs her? Hits her? How could he even think to do violence upon this vision of innocence and wonder? "I have called for assistance," the man shouts. "I will have my wife." I laugh, realizing he thinks he has to break down the bronze doors, when all he has to do is walk around to the back and stroll inside. If he were willing to get his feet as sooty and putrid as Lily's, there would be nothing to bar his way. But he is a man who only understands how to strike things with his fist. Lily looks at me and laughs. As always, no sound comes from her throat, but her lips are pulled back and her eyes dance with humor. She knows this man, her husband, has other options, but does not see them, will not see them. A sudden look of mischief leaps into her eyes. She turns and flees back toward the ladies' door. She must keep her balance by touching the feet of the corpses as she stumbles by them. That sets off their strings and, in turn, the organ music grows more involved, more chaotic. In between peals of thunder, the frenzied music made by Lily's passage through the room rises in dissonant wails, as if the organ had learned to scream. "Wait!" I call after her. "Will she leave now, and die, so that I never see her again? I cannot bear it. I cannot live without the hope of seeing her again." I run after her. "Lily, stop! I love you!" That does stop her. She turns, a look of bemusement slowly dawning on her hollow face. She wavers, then nods to herself, stands up straightly, and holds out a hand. Without hesitation, I take it. She scans the room, then tugs on my hand gently. I follow where she leads, not caring what it is she looks for, only aware of her warm hand in my own, the heat rising from her skin. Near the center aisle of the room, she leads me in between two biers whose occupants are fresher than most. The flowers helmet piled here yesterday are still unbowed. Lily turns to me, pulls off her nightdress, and for the first time, I experience the thrill of seeing her naked. But it is coupled with the fearful dread of seeing the old marks of fingers, now overlain with the dark rash of plague. I love her, and she is going to die. Lily comes close enough for me to see the beating of her heart in the great artery of her neck. Her lashes are a shade darker than her hair, a dark gold that frames her amber eyes beautifully. I am entranced by the angle of her cheeks, the set of her jaw, the deep red of her lips. For a moment, I see a glistening on her skin flutter across her flesh, like the brush of feathers. But that is just the candlelight on sweat. She fumbles with my belt for several seconds before I realize what she plans. I grab her hands and start to push her away, but her amber eyes catch mine, and I cannot look away. This is Lily, my love, the only person who ever gave me a reason to live, to get up from bed and make my way through my days without despair. If I ever have moments of sanity these days, it is because of her. She raises a single eyebrow in a question, and after a moment, I nod. I realize it is not she who is mine, but I who am hers. Whatever she will have of me, I will give, and gladly. I pull off my shirt as Lily loosens my belt and pushes my trousers down to my knees. Then she lays us down among the flowers. Dimly, I am aware of the music and the thunder and the continual pounding on the front door, but mostly I am aware of Lily. Her flesh is hot but welcoming, her arms and legs wrapped around me. I am not experienced in these matters, but Lily needs no words to make it clear what she wants, and together we writhe and twist and crush the flowers beneath us in our ardor. Without twine, the music we make is ours alone. When we are finished, Lily smiles at me, but I know she is nearly spent. The life in her eyes is duller now, her breath more winded. The plague has run through her veins like a poison, heating her flesh, burning her up from the inside out. Her skin shines even brighter as her soul rises to the surface to leave. She has little time left. She rolls away and sits up groggily, but still she clasps one of my hands with hers. I hold her hand desperately, as if I am drowning, and she is the only thing which will save me. She is all I have, and all I could ever desire. A wrenching crash sounds throughout the building, and Lily jumps, startled. She drops my hand and pulls herself up to her feet. Flower petals are stuck to her back and legs by sweat, making crazy pink and purple patterns on her body. "Magda!" a man shouts over the storm and the raucous wheezing of the organ. "Magda!" I realize the crashing sound means the front doors have given way, and Lily's husband and his companions are in the building. I haul myself to my feet as well. I look to her. My Lily, my treasure. She gazes toward the door at her husband, and her expression turns dark and angry. She is a bruised pillar of fury and rage and righteousness and loveliness. She grabs a candle and throws it with all her might. It lands on a bier, and instantly the lace is aflame. A chorus of surprised cries rises from the interlopers. Lily throws a second candle, and more flames erupt between us and the men at the doorway. Lily holds out her hand to me. There is no way for me to sort through the tangle of my pants and belt in time to avoid those brave few who have come into the room, who have not fled this place of fire and decay. I step out of my pants and, naked, take the hand of the bride of my heart. Together we snatch candles from their pewter holders and light every bier we run by. My lovely Lily is failing, her strength quickly leaving her. But it doesn't matter. The men behind us have lost the fight. They scream at each other to flee as curtains take flame, and the vast web overhead burns. The organ groans in a maniacal caricature of its usual atonal music, drowning out even the rain on the roof, the roar of the flames, and the rolling thunder. Everywhere is madness and stench and fluttering string that prompts the organ into ever louder, ever more frantic strains of wild music no living ear should ever hear. Lily stops at the doorway to the back room, the one with the worst corpses and foulest odors. There is little to burn here, and the outer door remains open. We can walk out into the storm, away from the inferno at our backs. But walk out of the building into what? For Lily, death by plague. For me, likely death as well. Can one hold a plague victim so close and not catch the disease oneself? But even if I survive, Even if the building does, I have worked my last night shift. Without Lily, I could not bear this place. Someone else will tie her fingers and toes to the organ. Someone else will watch her slowly dissolve into rancid ichor and stain the lace and leak onto the floor. Suddenly, I am glad I will no longer work the night shift. I could not bear to see my Lily dead. Just knowing she will die is enough knowledge to undo me, to crack my heart and make me bleed all remaining hope and strength onto the stained floor. Thinking of those mothers coming to see their children, I can once again pity them. To have one's heart broken so thoroughly, to yearn for a peace that will forever be out of reach, to have no healing, no surcease from sorrow. I understand now. It is a cruel God that demands such suffering from poor mortals like ourselves. And when God is pitiless, the least we can do, we fragile beings, is to pity each other. Lily leans against a bier, nearly gone, and waves me on ahead. She would have me save myself, and live to walk the city streets. But that is not a fate I can call my own. Not anymore. Nor will I ever leave her willingly. She catches my gaze again, and I see acceptance in her eyes, and love. Her flesh ripples, red and gold and silver, feathers now showing through her translucent skin. And I see that Carl was right. A phoenix will arise from the ashes of this place, and purge the city of its foulness and its despair. I laugh. We are, after all mad in this place. Lily smiles at me and tilts her head. I lean down and press my cold lips to her fevered ones. Then we turn away from the world, and together, to the shrieks of the blazing organ, we walk into the fire.